Welcome to Against All Oddities, the podcast about three brothers coming to terms with the oddly true and the truthfully odd. This month, we're talking about near-death experiences, or NDEs if you want to save some time. And we're doing it the only way we know how, by cramming together a bunch of jokes, personal anecdotes, and several hilarious stories out of left field, including time perception, squirrel attacks, Michael Stipe, and train hopping. Of course, we also dig into the topic at hand and discuss the Monroe Institute field test for NDEs, first-hand NDE accounts, book and TV recommendations, and of course, NDE fails. Also, for all of our super fans out there, you might notice that this episode was recorded back in November when we punted it to the spring. So, if it seems like we're giving you some quick updates about our lives that seemingly happened months ago, it's because we are. You most likely won't notice, but we wanted to warn you anyways because we are Against All Oddities.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to Against All Oddities. We are three brothers that talk about weird and fun and paranormal and odd and everything under the sun. And this month's episode, we're just gonna sit in the corner and we're gonna project out because there's a giant meteor crashing towards us and it is imminent. And then suddenly it gets deflected. But before it got deflected, we had this experience. It was a near-death experience because that's this month's episode.
Oh, there's your energy. There's that tip we know.
That's
there he is.
Hey, that's our episode. Near-death experiences.
Yeah, NDEs.
NDEs. And I will start by saying that if you don't know what that is, just go watch the near-death experience TV show on Netflix. There's like 4 episodes and they're all awesome. I think it's called like Near Death or whatever. Or
we've watched it twice. It's amazing.
It's so good.
I think I saw that one too.
But it just goes through people's accounts where they either did die for a minute and they were performing CPR, or they drowned, or they just met catastrophe in some way, but they did not lose. Like their body was unconscious, but their consciousness continued to exist outside of their body, and they experienced either a light or all of them, which is crazy. All of them experienced peace, and then afterwards they said they were comfortable with whatever's going to happen because they were so at peace when it happened.
Yeah,
and they some of them could describe what was going on in the room, even though they were dead and doctors were doing CPR and stuff. They're like, no, I knew what the doctor was saying, and they told them afterwards. So it's like they brought this objective evidence back.
Yeah, like a third person. That's pretty cool.
It's awesome, and it further proves that there's a non-brain form of our conscious that we don't understand, but it has these abilities. And also, what we're going to get into in a little bit is life flashing before your eyes. I have a little study about that. Nate has some data to go through, and we might have some examples. So.
But I want real quickly on that point. I wanted to devil's advocate a little bit for I mean, obviously I'm a believer in the NDE thing and like the whole consciousness outside of the physical body. That's like, so just that aside, like a devil's advocate thing is like, wouldn't it behoove us as a species that right before we died, like our brain chemistry just kind of was like, chill out, bro.
Like it just dumped all it had was just
yeah, like, exactly. Like so that we ought like the universal 100% experience, all having like perceived sense of peace and accepting of what's happening. That like to me, like devil's advocate again is like, oh, that's some really handy brain chemistry that like makes that work out. And it made me think of this artist named Neil Goldberg who taught at the school that
he was a wrestler, right?
That's a different Goldberg, I think. Neil Goldberg is an artist Definitely not into wrestling.
He's definitely a wrestler. He's a really strong ball guy.
Yeah,
Goldberg.
that's a different
Google
one.
it.
Different one. But anyway, he gave this presentation that I had to work once. It was really kind of awesome, but like the premise of it, I mean, it was about like in a Seinfeld sort of way about like daily observational kind of humor stuff. But it started off with him doing these slow motion freeze frames of like tigers and lions and like jaguars hunting gazelles. And he was freezing it down to it was actually really funny, but it kind of started off on this premise that like when you stopped on a single, like if you froze frame by frame, the moment before the gazelle got its neck crunched, like the neck is in the lion's mouth, and then the next frame the lion crunches down, you can see the gazelle give up. Like there's this whole like panic and running, and then they like he's like, look at that, like right here. That's when they're like, oh yeah, this is okay. Like it's like, oh well, like there's this moment. And so he was showing all these different like freeze frames of like various prey animals just kind of like relaxing into their fate like a second before it happens. And I don't know, it made me think of that. But regardless, I'm a big into the consciousness outside of the body thing. I just always thought when they talk about the serenity that comes with NDEs, I'm like, that could be something more evolutionary in our biology.
Well, yeah. Also, it's like, we're screwed. We're screwed. Just dump the dopamine reserves. Like we're not going to use them. Just flood the gates.
Yeah, like I don't want to experience the pain of getting my neck chomped on by this lion. Like flood out the sensors.
But here's the thing, and I got to go a little more in depth. And I just broke out, by the way, my Monroe handbook on near-death experience.
Oh, nice. Nice.
With all the resources.
It was blurry when you held it up, Nate, but I'm picturing like the handbook that's in Beetlejuice.
Pretty much is, but I did. It has some in-depth stuff that we're going to talk about. But to expand on what you were saying, Chris, I was listening to a couple podcasts today. Like, so I'm going to act like I've read some books. I haven't read any books. I've just listened to the authors talk about their books today. And Mary was really into NDEs like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And she was into, I'll talk about the authors in a minute, but she'd tell me all these stories. And I was like, and I guess I was too much in our objective world, like at the time, to listen to the artist talk about.
You heard her, but you didn't hear her, man.
I didn't hear her, and I was just I was like, "What book was that about the life review guy?" That she's like, "It was like 10 years ago, Nate." I'm like, "I'm just catching up."
I like that. Also, you did the husband thing. Did you try to mansplain it to her? Like, no, Mary, you need to understand what near-death experiences are. It's like, yeah, I totally researched that 10 years ago.
I do that all the time. That's all we do.
Check out this cool book. You're like, yeah, I gave that to you.
Yeah, we talked about this for 6 hours. We were driving to Wisconsin or whatever. Yeah,
I know. She's like a black belt, and you just got your yellow belt, and you're like, do you like karate? Check this kick out.
I'm really getting into it.
So I guess I guess we didn't do an updates at all.
Wait, what have you guys been up to this month, Chris? Go.
What were we up to together?
Shut up, Nate. It's Chris's turn. Chris.
I was going to say, and then we'll talk about what we were up to together, but I did briefly meet Michael Stipe.
Oh my gosh, how did that go?
What, in person you met him?
Yeah, for a second.
That's enough.
Yeah,
you can't.
I caught him off
be
guard
a little
because.
bit.
So did you make him pull your finger and make a fart sound?
No, he did not want to talk to me. But I was actually sitting like 5 feet away from him too, but his back was to my back, but at different tables. Did you smell him? Yeah. Probably.
What does Michael Stipe smell like?
It smells kind of like, when you go night swimming and you like get a little bit of algae. Or when the end of the world is
a bit earthy. He smells a little earthy.
A little earthy. No,
or do you mean he smells like low tide?
Like gala event that I was also I had to present a thing and I was working it, but I like am tip of the spear, so I'm like the greeter for a lot of people. Like for the organization, it's me and this other guy, and we're like the chummy face of we're like saying hi to everyone. And I saw him walk up, and he was trying to breeze past me, and our job is to say hi. We're like, hey, and he didn't even acknowledge us. Like, hey, Michael, and he like jumped out of his shoes. Like, I don't think he was in his like New Yorker mode where he's got.
How old is he now?
He is old. he
That's what I was
he
thinking.
looks older than he actually is, which is funny.
That's saying a lot.
That's saying a lot.
He
Well,
doesn't
he
listen
was
to this
80s. It's
podcast,
an
does he?
80s band, right? Like REM was 80s.
They formed in the 80s, so he was in his 20s
in college. It was a college. They played at a college party. REM. Like there was nothing to do. Like and it was just
really
like
quickly, you
Yeah.
guys give me. I know how old he is. What's your guess?
Let me guess.
Yeah, you guys both guess.
64.
62.
He's 63. So you guys, you guys,
We're good.
Oh,
We're pretty
you split.
good.
Yeah, but Nate wins off of Price is Right rules.
Yeah, that's
He
why
looked, he looked to be more of a 68.
You know what's funny? Hey, Chris, when you were traveling,
it's the miles.
Wait, if Chris, your company that you work for, if somebody's traveling to New York and you don't live there, and they're like, "Man, food's expensive," and then they're like, "No, you're covered. We have a Michael stipend over there." I was trying to come up with that the whole time you were talking about Michael Stipe.
Hey,
That was
pretty good.
That was
Stipend's
good. I liked it.
Isn't he in the band The White Stipe?
The funny thing is, everyone at my no one knows who he is. Like everyone under 40 was like, "What's a Michael Stipe and who's an REM?" And you're like, "Never mind, doesn't matter."
Did he all the way lose his religion? That's got to be like that tank is empty now because he was losing it in 93.
I mean, he's not even in the corner anymore, really. All right. So what else did we do? What's our catch up? Because you guys have the good one.
Nate was the host, though. Nate, why don't you talk about Oktoberfest and our coins? And
It was pretty good. I was chasing a lost dog for the most part. You guys did the coins.
Oh, there's we made Against All Oddity coins. They're like 1.5 inches. They are made with precious metals. They're very cool. They have a unique 2023 design.
The street value is about $500 a coin.
Probably they were not cheap.
We'll have to do a contest or something, but I'm gonna make some copper ones that look better. So I'd rather.
Yeah, but maybe if you guys write in or do something that impresses us, we'll mail you a coin.
We made the coins the day before Nate's big Oktoberfest party.
We did it
was the day of.
Oh yeah, it was the day of.
Yeah, the morning.
But the theme was time travelers versus cavemen. Interpret that however you will. And then there's 100-ish people there.
So Tim was saying we had plate ribs, and Tim's a meat expert. I had no idea how much I ordered. We went to Ashland Meat Company at Cross Brothers, which is kind of a boutique butchery.
It was very fancy.
Butcher, really fancy, great cuts of meat, very reasonable price. And we had pretty much enough for everybody. And we had just a ton of people. So we had the two foods we had were the plate ribs or dino ribs, which are the big beef ribs, right?
They were massive.
With the caveman theme.
And then we had hot dogs from the future.
Yeah.
And then veggie dogs from the farther future.
It was also potlucked out, so everybody brought stuff, and there were a bunch of cookies and snacks and treats, and there's like 20 some kids, 9 dogs, but the 9 dogs were somehow more present than the kids.
Well, also the dogs were okay this year. I don't know what
happened. They did
because
awesome.
We did the shelf. We tested it. Like my in-laws dog is an English setter, and she will jump on top of a table and start eating food.
Yeah.
So we made a shelf and we tested it out. It's like the food serving shelf was chest high, and over the summer, I built a giant gazebo. We built it, right?
We talked about it on our previous episode.
Yeah, but so we added a shelf next to the grill, and we tested it by putting treats on different heights and seeing if Tess could possibly get up there. And so like it's ridiculously high how high the shelf is. Yeah. And so if you're like a 5'3" woman trying to spoon something out, it's like you're at eye
you're
level.
pouring down to over your head. That's an overhead shot.
But that dog's got it.
That dog Tess definitely maybe 3 to 4 times that night I'd look over it, not that shelf, but the table where everybody put the food, and she was on it. And if there were people there, she was like nose on face, like waiting. And then if there were no people, she was just grazing it. Like, oh. So I have a small shack in the woods now with Alicia and the kids.
You bought property.
We bought some property that we keep talking about, and it came with the Rassle Castle.
What's the Rassle Castle again?
It's the cabin. We call it a cabin. I call it a
That's what you
shack.
bought a cabin, and it's named.
I call it the Rassle Castle. Well, there's no escaping. It's like it is a tiny home. It's 600 square feet, but it has a porch, it has a shower and a bathroom. But you're in the middle of the woods.
It's got creeks and it's badass.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, but
like
the
a camp.
creeks are-
It's like a camp. It's a proper camp.
Yeah, but with a permanent
with a roof and heat.
built.
Look,
thing.
if you live in Maine, you call that a camp. It's
All right.
your hunting camp, your fishing camp. It's not your house.
Yeah, this
It's
would
a
be
small place
comparable.
with heat and a shower, and you go there and maybe do stuff outdoors.
Yeah, people that don't want to camp that like to hunt would use something like this. But no, near death experiences. I feel like we already defined it, but
real quick, okay, I got a good segue into the next section. Just real quick, do any of us have like even a remotely NDE situation story?
Yes.
Of our own?
Yes,
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
two. I sent them to Nate. We captured them on video. Both.
You want me to play it on
Oh,
my?
but
Not
also,
yet. I have to
before you get
introduce-
into that one, I just realized Dad had one recently that I thought was kind of
Does he want it to be expressed publicly?
probably not deleted.
You know what's crazy is so I've had brain surgery before, and I have a handful of stories.
Let me clarify. You've had brain surgery done to you before, like this.
Yeah, I had
someone performed brain.
He
it's
had
not like you
a
had
large
brain surgery.
section of his brain removed. Like
Yeah.
what was it? Like a
the
quarter of
skull,
your
not the
frontal-
brain. I think.
the frontal cortex.
I mean, they
was
took the
hollowed out.
blood off the brain, so
Yeah, I had an
Did he
epidural.
use-
I had an epidural hematoma that needed to be evacuated because of trauma. And
By
that-
the way, they've been doing that surgery since Roman times.
yeah,
Yeah,
they
it's-
just drill a hole and just let it come out. And I guess they got lucky sometimes. But in this case, they took like a 50-cent piece size of skull off the back of my head, sucked out the blood, and it wasn't still bleeding. So they put the skull back on and then left it draining for a couple of days. So I would say that is pretty close to dying. All of us have probably come close to dying. Like the chainsaw
Countless.
slipped.
Oh,
Countless
yeah.
times.
You almost fall. You're hanging
Train
out on
tracks.
the train tracks. The trestles.
Oh my
popped and-
god, the train tracks.
So,
I
like-
know we've all like in the multiverse. All of us have died every time we step foot
I was on those.
train
So when we say train tracks, you have to picture those other people that live in Richmond know about them, but it's a
Old
train
school
track
people.
that
They
wait,
kind
wait,
of
hold
know
on.
enough.
Hot Water Music wrote a song about it. It's
Really?
called The Trestles. Yes.
No,
On the Trestles over the James is how the song
those
starts.
trestles.
Yeah,
Nice.
Chris is going to play it right now.
On the trestles, over the James. No pictures, just memories. They stick the same. Walking tracks to December rain. Hands were froze, knees were stiff, but damn sure worth that pain. 4 train sets past now. I felt them shake. Lay my head against the ties and over me they rage. And I saw heaven, and I saw hell, and I wanted to visit both.
Go check them out. Anyway, go ahead, Chris.
But anyway, so it's a train track that's like 100 feet off of a river that
If not
spans,
more,
like
more like
half a mile.
200 feet.
Yeah,
It's so
like
high.
it's instant death, like skyscraper.
People
height.
do die.
People
Yeah.
like commit suicide off of this.
Or just die. Like there's a college guy, or not a college guy. This was like from 15 years ago. He was reliving his college days and fell
no.
off as like a middle-aged man.
first
I'll
off,
say-
never relive your college days as a middle-aged man.
Yeah, I know. It's too late. You used your 9 lives. You used them up back then.
But
You're all
let me
pissed all
paint
out.
a picture for our audience. So we have like 150 to 200 feet off the ground. It's a rocky terrain into a river that spans
It's gravel. It's chunky
It's like-
gravel.
It's-
It's,
quarter of a mile.
it's chunky gravel.
Now, when I say bridge, I want you to picture not even a Stand By Me bridge. It's like worse than that. There are no.
It's
rails
concrete
or-
ledge on either side.
It's a ledge drop. It's not even a lip that you could stand on or that you can.
No,
hold
it's
onto.
rocks and then death.
It's a pile of gravel, and with a single track, or I guess there's
Two tracks.
2 tracks on there, And if you were to fall off, you just roll down the gravel and then off a sheer drop 150 feet into like, I don't know,
Rocky
5 feet
River,
of
Rocky
water.
River,
Yeah,
Rocky.
it's not even deep
You'll
water.
be lucky if you splash.
Yeah. And we and a lot of other people would go out at like midnight illegally because you're not even on this, you're not supposed to be on this. And we'd walk out to
the very middle.
halfway, like halfway out on this bridge where the supports are. There's a little area. So
The trestle.
So if a train came while you're walking, the only thing you could do is run away from the train as fast as you can because you can't go to the left
or towards the train to get to the trestle.
Yeah, or
trestle.
towards it, and then you hop off the rails at the trestle, and you can hide. There's like a 1 foot by 3 foot area you can like.
Well, it's pretty big. Like the trestle, I would say it's a 2 foot thing. Like where all the pylons are or whatever on the bridge, it's like a little. It's imagine like a concrete couch that goes out, but a tall one.
That's not big, man. You said it's real big, like 2 feet.
Well, it's big enough. What you do is you bring a 6-pack or a 12-pack of beer and your friends, and it's enough to accommodate like 6 people, right?
Yeah.
And you can sit Indian style and drink beer, and the trains go right in front of you.
Yeah, like 18 inches in front of you. It's insane.
Well, the dangerous thing. Well, it's not that. There's also 2 tracks. So if you're in the middle of it, really, if a train's coming, you have to judge what track it's on, and you walk.
No, you'd be a little trestle pig waddling to the end of that thing.
Well, anyway,
bacon by the end.
The trestle pig.
So warning to
don't try to find it.
Don't listen to this. But Tim and Nate would sometimes walk around the exterior of the thing, and by walk that means they balance on the ledge, holding their over with their upper torso.
No, there is a footing. If you've seen Cat's Eye, which we talked about,
it's like Cat's Eye. It's the side of a building.
It's exactly the size of Cat's Eye, but you have a holder on her. It is stupid. It is stupid. And
you know what makes that sketchier?
You just fall 150 feet to your death.
You know what's awful about that? I don't remember doing that.
Yeah, I do. I didn't do
that.
it. I was on the trestle. I was dumb enough to go out there with you guys, but I remember you guys going around it.
I remember doing that, and then the worst couple. I remember some bad ones, but I rode a train a couple times when they slow down, slow enough. I grabbed the handle and then climbed to the top and like teen wolf it. But you teen wolf it across the bridge, and then you jump off of it into the woods.
You know,
where you when we the problem is they're starting
to a decapitated head there.
You know what's funny is fast forward. This isn't funny at all. The opposite of funny. What's not funny is that
sad.
I'm working in a hospital circa 2010 or something as a respiratory therapist, and had to withdraw on an individual that had fallen off the train. They were on top of the cars, jumping from car to car, and he fell. And like they said, it was a quarter mile between like leg and torso and stuff like that.
Oh no, it's absolutely dumb and terrible.
Yeah, I had a friend who used to ride trains up, and he would get on right there, and he slipped getting on it once, and his ankle like accidentally touched a wheel, and it degloved his leg.
Yeah, that's awful.
You also
he's okay. He
also had a friend that died.
Hey,
and then Dave was up there one time, and he had a ring on his hand, and we're there, and a train just knocked it, going super fast. He wasn't trying to do anything or grab anything. He was
close to it.
He was close to it, and one of the things that was outside of it was going by, like the ladders or something. It just hit his hand like that, and we looked, and the ring was in his finger.
Ugh.
He had to like squish it out, and then he didn't need stitches, but it was like
gross.
Did he have a near-death experience?
Yeah, his finger did. It's probably twitching right now that we're talking about it. Dave's
finger was floating outside of his body.
Dave has a ghost finger. Man. Can we start? I want to start calling Dave Ghost Finger because it's a great nickname.
No show. Cool. Like in every other multiverse, he's like, "Hey, give me 5."
Yeah.
So let's round up to some. I know where what the real beginning of NDEs are, and I listened to a few. I listened to this a while ago. No offense, expanding on consciousness, the podcast. It's a little slow, but they have great authors on there. authors on there.
Authors, there it is.
Authors on there. Mary's like laughing right now somewhere upstairs, like, because like I'm terrible. But there's a few, like I'll say there's 3 big names in it. There's more than that. I got to get into this. The father really of all NDEs is Raymond Moody, and they interview him. Great interview. He wrote the book Life After Life, which is the book that Mary read. It was the first book, and he was actually,
it was like the first book on NDEs.
Early 70s, although the real study started in 1968, and I'll tell you why in a second. But Raymond Moody was a psychiatrist, and he had been doing other stuff too. It took him a while to get his med degree, but he is like in his it's not in residency or whatever. Like all these stories were coming out about all these near-death experiences, and he was the first person to just kind of interview and write it down. And he would talk to cardiologists and stuff, and they'd be like, "Oh, I got like 50 of these." Right, or go talk to these people. And so it was enough to put a book together. I think it was maybe 1972 or something. And then it went wild, and everyone, they were like, "You're the foremost expert." He's like, "I'm not an expert. I'm just the first person that did it. I'm a year out of med school. I'm not like, but now he's like 78 or something, and he's been in it a while.
He's the foremost expert.
He's one of them. Like another guy would be Dr. Grayson. He wrote the book more recently called After. He's still older at this point, but he knows Moody, and it was from UVA, and UVA has that whole
the Center for Consciousness,
or whatever it is, right? Like they have, it's in my resource page that I'll send you guys to post on our page. But he kept going on after that, and then there's another guy I'm going to bring up, and that's Pim van Lommel, who's like a Dutch cardiologist, and he currently has like a study. Also, Dr. Grayson was also on expanding on consciousness, like because UVA and Monroe Institute are like entwined. But the Lommel guy, the cardiologist, he started the study that Tim might talk about in a little bit on NDEs, and it's like currently there, and he has this journal and other stuff. But I was listening to him talk. Actually, I don't know who was interviewing him. It was on YouTube from a while ago. But he was like, where it comes from, all the NDE craze from the early 70s and late 60s, our defibrillators came out in 1967.
I was going to say, exactly. It's like the expansion of like a medical ability to restart the heart.
Yes. So there were, if you really look, there's always been stories of this, right? But the real thing came out in 1967 with the defibrillator, because all of a sudden it used to be a fatal thing. Like you're having a heart attack, they'll do chest compressions, or around or whatever, or like back to the Revolutionary War, they actually had smoke that'd blow up your ass to, if you have a heart attack or you're drowning or whatever, maybe you come back and tell a wild story. They're like, "Sure, Bill, go have fun," and then like shoo you away. But 67, all these people started coming back after minutes. Like, "Oh, I was dead for 3 minutes? That's crazy." It's funny because I was just talking to my aunt the whole time, like you were doing that, and I watched you do that. It was crazy. You're shocking me. And then there are doctors who are like, whatever. And then after like the 100th one, because it's like, by the way, it's like 15 to 20% of
cardiac arrest defibrillator,
or like of an extended period of time, come back with these weird stories, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, and the cardiologist, and Lommel is actually a cardiologist who started the study later after he stopped practicing whatever Tim does, and Tim's going to be our expert cardiology person because that's his job, right? But anyway, those 3 names, and then I have like a million other books I'm going to name drop. The Life After Life one, I'll give you one quick story in that, and there's definitely a few different things that come with a near-death experience. I'm not going to read some of those, but we should banter, and then we'll come back to other stuff, because it's a little more boring. But what struck me 10 years ago when Mary read Life After Life, I never read it other than her telling me, stopping every once in a while and telling me about it. I've listened to Raymond Moody, a couple different podcasts, but the one story that stuck with me is the life review part. And a lot of people is time doesn't matter, right? Like, so in our lifetime, like we exist in a state of, a time as a constant. But outside of that, you could have in just a minute, you could relive your whole life or do whatever.
Yeah.
And you hear that with DMT and other drugs that can induce that weird sense of time loss. But
and also ego death. It like simulates dying, like DMT and stuff.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And maybe that's, maybe this is all the pineal gland. But again, like when I was listening to Dr. Grayson today, he was like, there is no evolutionary reason for any of this. He kept saying, and the whole point, the conclusion to all of these doctors have is your consciousness is existing outside of your brain. And as soon as you're disassociated from the body, you all of a sudden actually think more clearly, and all of this other stuff and time and blah, 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 space and ego. But the one story that stuck with me from Life After Life that I really liked was this guy, I forgot how he died. He died, and then he was having a life review, and it kept cycling over this one moment in his life. And it was, he was on like a fishing trip or something, or canoeing, and he was eating lunch, kind of all like a river island or whatever, and there's this plant that was dying, and he put down his lunch and went and got water and poured it on the plant, and that was kind of the most selfless act that he did in his entire life.
Oh no.
And it kept just kind of cycling over that, and then he came out of it or whatever, but he was like, he thought it was odd that of his entire life was like this one tiny trivial moment that his life review kept coming back to. And maybe, and a lot of that could be like his own self-conscious or subconscious saying, this is what you should be doing all the time. Or who knows, right? We're not going to go, I think, into like any religious out part of it.
Yeah.
And then before...
Well, I have a story about a religious part of it, but it's not...
Well, okay, I'll say one thing, and that's like, and I'm reading out, there's like the study, or actually it's from IANDS, in North Carolina, which is the International Association for Near-Death Studies, and it's in North Carolina. And in their whole worksheet for after effects of near-death states, one thing is people are less religious.
That's awesome.
And they are more spiritual and less religious. And 80% of all people, it affects them their entire life, and they go back to like, what was the biggest life-changing moment? And it's always they're even like 40 years later, they're going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
And then I think we could listen to what Tim was saying, hear the religious thing, and then I actually have Grayson's NDE scale that I got from the Monroe Institute and questionnaire that UVA uses to question every NDE experience.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I'll go through those. And we could pretend, we could maybe even simulate a near-death experience from one of you guys or both at the same time. You can answer the questionnaire.
Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. Also, just to briefly mention, there is a VR game called Near-Death Experience.
What?
And you VR a near-death experience, and what happened?
It's not Plank, is it? Because I did that to my mother-in-law.
I've definitely seen people have NDEs playing Plank. Where
I was about to say Plank induces it. This mimics it, but the VR game, you can watch somebody play through it on YouTube. But it starts out.
Play it.
You're at a concert. There's a fire, and you fall, and there's smoke or something, and then suddenly, but it's somebody's interpretation, because the next part of it, you're in like a tunnel or like a cave, but you have to climb up to get out, and you're going towards the light. But then as soon as you go through the light, it's just different atmospheric, like galaxies and colors, and going through music. And
boring.
It is a VR game called Near-Death Experience. So
I forgot.
I could not bring it up.
I spent the $8 on it. I did do the one that had, because it had a Ram Dass meditation on it. There's like some tranquil one. It sounds like that. It's really trippy, but it's not meditation. Like, I think zoning out to like a bunch of like big flowers and they melt away and do something else. It's cool, but it's definitely, I don't think it's meditation.
I think it's kind of the same. So I'll say, so one thing is, we are at some point in the life of this podcast, we'll do an episode on death, and we're not there yet, but I'll say it's part of my job, and it used to be more of a part of my job. I stepped away from it, but I want to get back to it, actually. So I'm looking around at opportunities to do like flex time employment, doing palliative medicine. I haven't taken anything. I haven't looked around that hard, but I do feel after witnessing like a lot of
people dying,
deaths that could have been better. I just feel like, so just to explain, and I'm slowly growing to appreciate this and realize its importance, and to the point that I feel like maybe doing something about it.
I don't know, dude. Do we want to do this?
We don't have to. We don't have to.
It's sad. Like,
but see, that's another thing.
You just drop the rock down on this.
We can drop it. We can drop that. We can drop all that stuff.
I agree, but here's the tempo is gonna sink the podcast, and I think it's a great thing to talk about. But I don't know if I want to do it right now.
Yeah, no, we can skip it. It's fine. So we can reset. Boop.
Because now I'm sad. You just saddened the whole thing with like in here, and I agree that's the we all have to do. And 6 Feet Under did a great 6 Feet Under did a great thing on that too. I think like as a show.
Yeah, it was a pretty good show when that came out in like the mid '90s or late '90s.
Late '90s, early 2000s. But it was like here's a raw look at death, and I really love that show for that because it showed it, and I thought it did a good job, especially in season 1. They're showing the sanitizing of death, and but it's taking away the human aspect of it. I agree.
Right, the sterilization of death is a thing. Like I'm not getting embalmed. I'm pretty passionate about that.
Oh
like,
yeah,
fine.
Oh, I mean, sack in the dirt, right? Like
give my organs away and put the rest in the ground in a burlap sack. Yeah, or a wicker basket.
The wicker thing was awesome. By the way, like, did you see that? Or was that just me?
No, I've seen it. Yeah. I took a class on green burials back in Boston a long time ago.
There's this guy, Appalachian woman, that makes wicker caskets. But anyway, like, can we not do that though?
Yeah, we'll skip it. But so my segue about the whole death thing is that I'm legitimately looking at a part-time job, like to do palliative care. It's also one because I'm licensed to be able to like help and do these things, but also because I'm kind of like, I consider myself kind of undercover, right? Like, because into the spooky, like I'm willing to peek behind the veil or admit that there is a veil, like to shake around. So if somebody's like needs that extra sort of like, I was talking to my grandmother, I'd be like, good, you need to talk to your dead grandmother that's sitting in the corner right now trying to have a conversation with you. Awesome. You need to face these things. Like I'm willing to lean into that too.
Yeah, the Dr. Sleep sold that really well.
Yeah, no. I think that was great. Ram Dass did that. There's a great episode too, and not in a weird trippy way. He was just with his family members.
I mean, that's the whole point of. I mean, we talk a lot about pop culture, but I think pop culture did a lot of good stuff with NDEs too, and I'm only bringing it up just because there's more levity in it than the course of action we were going on, and also we have a lot more kind of facts and stuff to talk about. But
what's behind you?
I wanted to talk about the OA. I love the OA TV show on Netflix that came out like 10 years ago.
It's not 10 years. It was only like
3 years.
3 years ago.
Are you kidding me? 3 years ago is when
5 years ago
started. I was living in New York watching OA season 2. That was quite a while ago.
Time is she's a finicky one.
A funny thing. Actually, yeah.
Tell us about the OA.
The OA is a TV show. It came out in 2016.
That sounds right.
Yeah. 7 years ago.
Which in 3 years, 2016 will be 10 years ago, which is ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. Well, anyway, it's a great show. It had, the ending was a little weird, but yeah, I mean,
it didn't end. They just canceled it.
Well, yeah, I thought
they could keep going,
but essentially it was about this crazy serial killer guy who like kidnaps all these people who have had NDEs because they kept bringing back like esoteric wisdom, and then he kept them imprisoned in the basement of his like torture house, and like he killed them every day and brought them back and like had them report. It's really good writing. I thought it was very clever, but I thought it got really interesting how they did that, and I think it's a sleeper. I mean, it was kind of popular, but also like maybe not on the cultural zeitgeist radar of the time period.
Everyone should watch the first episode. It's beautiful. Like,
Yeah, and
the
it
show
ends-
is weird
it-
as
it-
shit,
it's
but
so good.
the first episode of season 1 is one of the most beautiful episodes I've ever seen, and that's what Chris has on the back if you see the YouTube thing. But the scene of when the little girl dies and is lifted into the mirror place, and she's like, "Do you want to go back?" It's so good.
Yeah,
I love
it's
it.
kind of well done in how it like stays mysterious, but also kind of really tackles in like the ideas of NDE and like also kind of the powers that you might, or it's not powers, but like this how it changes your consciousness. And another NDE that I was thinking about is Edgar Casey, the American.
Oh wait, Chris, before you do Edgar Casey, Tim, what were you doing with? There's a secret. The secret that the OA gets, and here's a spoiler. Cover your ears. It's a secret dance. And Tim, what were you saying you did? With
No,
that
I said
secret
when
dance?
the OA first came out, you sit in rounds at the hospital, and there's the attending cardiologist, and all of us are talking about the patients and stuff. And so one of the resident doctors, like, I just didn't want to be there. Like, I was tired, and I had just watched the OA or something, so it was like in my head. And in my head, the other 8 people in the room have also seen the fucking show, but they're like, somebody's like, "Just this is a 62-year-old male coming in with chest pain. They ruled in for a heart attack," and I'm in the corner going, "Oh."
The show has
Like,
a
trying to
special
do the dance
that
or
these
whatever.
NDEers bring back. And stuff, but-
There's an interpretive dance, and you can shift realities if you do the interpretive dance.
That
Which
was
is a
totally
spoiler.
trying to go outside. Just
but Ben Custer, my friend, was the only other person I know that's ever other than you guys that's ever watched the show. And there'd be a group of people, and we'd be like, "Oh, start talking across," especially if the conversation was going south. We'd start doing the dance, and then everyone stopped.
It was always funny. Anytime you start doing the dance, and anyone else had seen the show knew exactly what it was.
They would do it with you
Start
immediately.
doing- But
Which
I
is
thought that
like
was
6 people total in the
amazing
United
writing. I mean, it sounds silly, and if you have no idea what we're talking about, don't worry.
It is silly.
No one understood.
It
what was
is stupid and silly,
It's
but
such
it's
a serious
awesome.
show, though. But you're right. That is the funniest fucking shit in the world. Unless you haven't seen the show, then it's like
You're
look
like,
a
what the
crazy
fuck are you
person.
doing?
Did you guys
Which
watch
makes
the
it
other seasons?
funnier.
No,
yeah,
I didn't.
no,
watch
there's only
season
one
2.
other season.
Oh yeah, well, they had the robot, and they had the robot that could do the dance, and oh my
Well,
god,
that was that guy. He figured it out. You don't need to be a person to do it. Oh,
yeah, it's the
WTF.
gestures that.
All
that
right.
needed- Anyway,
Again, like just like the Kingdom of Crystal Skull or whatever. If you have a show or movie, give it to the Carroll brothers. Let us edit it for you.
yeah, we will
Not-
fix the
It's
shit.
not
out.
going to be as long. It might just be a half an hour every episode. But you know what? It's going
It's
to
a
be
better
good.
half hour.
It's a good half hour.
Anyway, Nate, do you have any other good stories?
So what I was thinking that we do, well, I also uploaded Tim's near-death experiences to the cloud. That if we need.
Oh yeah,
if we
that's a
wanna watch
funny
those.
thing. So before we get too funny, I will say that the
Do
We're never gonna get too funny,
Tim?
I think
before
you're
we get
giving us
hilariously
credit.
funny,
yeah, I've never really been worried about us being too funny.
right? No, there's so one thing we can't ignore is like a religious aspect of this, and then a lot of people that do. I know Nate was saying a lot of people become less religious and
but more spiritual. Yeah.
But there is one guy that didn't, and he was an atheist, and he was a neurosurgeon, a man of science, and he got sick. It was Christopher Hitchens. He wrote a book about this, but he got septic. He got some sort of bacterial meningitis, and he was not only like in a medically induced coma while he was like recovering from this, but he knows how the brain works and infection and bacteria. And he was like, my brain it wasn't functioning. The base level of brain with the amount of drugs I was on and the infection I had is to keep my heart beating and my lungs breathing and just to sort of keep that stuff going. And he was like, but I remember everything. And it's not just remembering in the room. He said he went to a place, but what he described was angels, and that he was floating on a rainbow that looked like butterfly wings, and he had this like completely spiritual, but he came back like 100% on board. That was like, those were angels, that was Jesus. I'm all in on Christianity now. I wasn't before, but now after having experienced that, I am. And he is not alone, because if you Google near-death experience movie, you're going to get 23 Christian movies and then 2 like the OA.
What's the one that just
you
came
have to
out,
be warned,
guys?
though.
Tim, what was the one that just came out?
Oh yeah, there's one that came out 7 days ago. Hold on.
I got excited about when I first saw the ad, and then I saw it was who it was by, and then I got sad. And I'm not gonna watch it. And I'll tell you why.
You should be warned, though. Like, if you Google that, you do become. It makes you a born again. It's unfortunate. That's why I don't Google it.
So my warning to I love anything, whatever you do, that's great. However, what I can't stand is any like dogmatic Christian bias that's going into something. So like
it also happens to be the cheesiest aesthetic.
Yeah, like hey, I'm all about, I'm not dissing Christianity at all. No. And if you actually ask me, so you know what the closest religion I think I would be if you had to peg me down would be a Gnostic Christian.
Yeah.
Like if I had to like if you had to peg me down, I have no problem. It's probably not going to get like there might be some pitchforks and torches if I go into that too deeply about what I actually think that is. And I got pretty far into it too with Emily's mom who goes to church and stuff. I kind of laid it out like, imagine you're the universe or God and you need to grow and you want to split yourself into little bits. And then, well, anyway, she was like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. Which I was like, oh, I like this. But again, I don't need any pitchforks coming up my driveway. I'm not going to go into like, and by the way, I try not to have beliefs anymore. And I don't think any like belief, like if the only thing I got from that book or trilogy, My Big Toe, which is Theory of Everything, it's like the word belief is absolutely terrible because it's like, fuck it. I'm just gonna think this way with like zero experience, zero like technical knowledge or science knowledge or anything. If you're like, well, I believe the inside of the moon is hollow and filled with reptilian aliens.
Because that's what my gut tells me.
Why not? Because why not? I'm just gonna make my brain thinks this is true for no reason.
You believe in life after love.
Exactly. Cher is the only person that's allowed to blatantly like know something for no reason, right? Or like,
the movie that is in theaters across the nation, it's called After Death, and it is chronicles of stories of various near-death experience survivors that came back, I think, a little more Christian than before they died.
Which is okay. Like, I have no problem with that, but I don't like dogmatic religions. I hate it. I can't do it. Like, and if you're tainting something with, like, if your point of telling these stories is to get people to sign your book or whatever, then it might not be that good, you know? Like, maybe you should think twice about it.
All right, so never have. There was a phrase I read about the not near-death experiences, but the feeling of trying to get back to it or just being comfortable going back to it. But it was like a homesickness for a home to which you cannot return, a home which maybe never existed. It's pure nostalgia, the yearning, the grief for lost places that you've been to. That was Hiraeth. I don't know how to pronounce that correctly. Hiraeth. But it's a word that just means you grieve a place that's gone forever or never existed. And so that's why it's this sense of peace and nostalgia that people come back with, the near-death experience. Because some of the stuff I was reading about, they're like, yeah, I don't want to die. I'm not suicidal, but I want to go back. It was such peace. It was such, and I don't have peace in my life, so I need to get back to it. So I get, what was that? Flatliners, you know, you're chasing.
Oh yeah.
By the way, I cannot believe we have not talked about that yet.
I know. I feel
Thank you,
dumb,
Tim.
Jeez.
Oh my God. I didn't see the new one.
I didn't either. The word I was describing was a little more.
It's just like any of these other remakes. It's like, You didn't need to make a new one. The new one's
Yeah.
fine, but like totally
Did
fine.
the new one have Kevin Bacon in it?
No.
See,
All right, so I'm gonna talk about a study that was done trying to figure out the life flashing before your eyes thing, and then I feel like we can roll into the
they're
personal
ready to go when you're
experiences that
ready.
I had.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing that happens before or during a near death experience, if you don't project out of your body, but one of the experience that a lot of people had was that time slows down. And people are like, no, it's your perception of time, or that's the end of time. Your life flashes before your eyes. It takes so long, you can relive everything. But so somebody tried to study this, right? And it's easily Googleable. NPR did a whole thing on it. There's
Radio Lab, maybe?
oh no, Radiolab did a whole, they had an episode that they could do better than anything that we can do. But essentially what the study was is the guy was like trying to figure out how to induce the fear of death so that he could record it and then try to see why time slowed down to objectively measure time slowing down somehow. And he did roller coasters and all this stuff, and none of it worked. It wasn't scary enough until he found out about this thing that just drops you. And you have like a 3 to 4 second free fall until you hit like an acrobat net sort
Was
of
that
deal.
that thing you screamed on at King's Dominion?
No, nothing this intense. Because
drop
this,
zone?
it's a literal free fall. There's nothing connected to you, but you hit a net and you don't know when you're going to hit it.
Oh, okay.
And you also don't know when you're going to drop. And so the way he
That
tried
sounds
to
horrible.
right. And everybody,
okay.
because he said, how scary was that 1 to 10? Everybody said 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. And so the way he was trying to measure time slowing down was that he would play numbers at a crazy fast speed in front of the person about to drop. And then you couldn't register them in real time. The brain couldn't keep up. But if time slowed down, you'd be able to see the numbers in the
1,
sequence.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Right, but different.
It was
And
1 through
then
10. just
so
like
it
that.
happened and nobody could read the numbers. Time never slowed down. But what they found out is happening, or what the suggested thing that's happening is we as humans absorb a shit ton of information. But the reason we know the information, or what knowledge is memory, right? You remember these facts, you remember whatever's going on, you remember Chris is falling asleep. You get 6 million memories at a time, right? The dog's over there, it's brown, what it smells like, the heat, everything, the sounds it's making. It's too much for you to save. You're going to run out of megabytes in your brain. And so what it does is it deletes 99% of it, except like, I need to focus on this, I need to talk, I need to not put my hand in the fire, whatever the important things are.
Don't put salt in your eye.
What happens in these near-death experiences, or when you legitimately think you're about to die, is that turns off. And so you're not focused on your linear path of how to live. What you're doing just goes away, and your brain absorbs everything. Like 100% memory. You create 6,000 memories within that microsecond.
Guru level absorption.
And so so the time itself never slowed down, right? But your perception of that time, and you absorb enough memories that it feels like years, because maybe can you write down 6,000 memories like on a piece of paper? No. But if your brain is flooded with 100% information, and just like, it's insane how many sensations and everything that's going on every bit. So it just
It was on
is
last
turned off.
week's late Radio Lab, or 2 weeks ago, and they said that it's only for a second. Like little kids, like how time seems to speed up, and everyone. My theory was always like, well, if you're in a car ride as a 1-year-old, that's like a large percentage of your life. Right?
Yeah, that's like 1% of your life driving 10 hours.
And if you're even at
Well,
your
not that
kid's age, Tim, like, it's still a big portion. You're driving to Disney World. That's a long drive, right? But there's a theory that it's not that. What it is you get used to stuff. You say your brain stops recording it. Like, as a little kid, everything's new all the time.
Yeah,
so
you're
you're like,
every aspect of it.
oh my God, everything's new. But like when you're 40, it's like, yeah, seen it. Like driving to work, and you forget how you got to work. because your brain's like, yeah, I've been doing this for 20 fucking years. I
Yeah.
don't need to record like getting on 95 to get to work. Yeah. So and the thing was like, if you can slow time down by having new experiences all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Which was, yeah. So, but anyway, I
which you could do even if you're still driving to work on 95. Like it's the like new experience is really just a matter of like shifting
consciously making an effort to like be like that 3-year-old and that's also why 3-year-olds are going to be exhausted, because it's just like absorbing all this information. I need to sleep to process it.
Yeah. Yeah, they're like, they always say like walk into a grocery store like you're a 3-year-old. You know, like it's going to blow your mind every single time if you actually can perceive what is actually happening, even on a mundane level.
I want that candy.
Like lights.
So even worse than that, we went to Chuck E. Cheese tonight because the kids got good grades on their report cards.
You are awake after a Chuck E. Cheese night?
And I'm going on 3 hours of sleep in the past 48 hours.
How was Chuck E. Cheese?
It was a lot of fun because the way they do it, I'm not going to get into this, but they do
how
cards.
Greasy were the controllers on the game?
Well, that's the thing. Like Pascali's, right, is the pizza place. And during COVID, if you ordered from Pascali's, you were ordering Chuck E. Cheese pizza. They turned into a delivery for a minute. And it's not bad. Like, it's pretty good pizza. Like, so I ate a fuck ton of that and just tried to win some tickets, and they brought some plastic shit home. It was a good time. There's no more animatronics, by the way. It's all flat screens, and you just watch puppet.
So lame.
Really disappointing.
So real quick, and this is different too. I'm gonna send you guys a thing. This has to do with near-death experiences in the same way. All right, so Nate, I sent you a link to this if you want to share it, and
all right, hold on.
you guys can watch it too. It's called the flash lag effect. Like it's hard for me to make a leap for this to near-death experiences other than the perception of time. But it's worth looking up, even if it's not directly related to our topic right now, but it is kind of indirectly related. It's called the flash lag effect. They can't explain it, and then I'll tell you what it is. But what I sent was,
do you want me to play it, or do you want
it's a visual thing, so we have to describe it, but you guys should watch it.
All right, we're looking at 2 cubes on a piece of paper. Moving cube. 2 cubes are aligned at any one time, but you will perceive misalignment.
Just keep watching it. Like, it never looks like they're lined up, though. Every time that cube flashes, it is lined up perfectly with the moving cube.
Yeah, it's going back and forth. Like
it looks like a sugar cube
this
going
is the
back
better
and forth,
example.
and then there's a ghost cube popping in and out. Yeah, it's like an optical illusion.
It's not an optical illusion, though, because they can't figure out why it does that. Like, it's perfectly lined up, but every time you watch the video, one of the blocks is always off to the side. So you perceive it's always off to the side every time, even though it's perfectly aligned. And they think it's because when you see an object moving and it's in a pattern, and then even though something else comes up that the truth is it's perfectly aligned with it, we see it misaligned, is because your brain is always one step ahead. It's trying to predict what the outcome will be to show you what truth is, and the truth isn't always correct right there.
Well, part of that, you know, also like kind of like you're seeing everything you see visually is in the future, right? Like, or like, so your brain is projecting the images that you see are actually like a millisecond or whatever off. Like it's like when you swinging at a baseball or something, like your brain is perceiving what things are going to be.
Yeah.
So there's no lag. You're basically stopping lag from happening, right?
But it does it by predicting the future, and and your predictions aren't always lined up with 100% reality. So that's why my point, I guess, with that was that either your time slows down, or that the things that you get actual real-time perception somehow, and then that could explain kind of what we're seeing. So my near-death experience that we are going to play, it's an audio medium, so I will describe it to you first. It will not spoil it, and then Nate's going to play the video. If you're on YouTube, you will see the video. So why the back of my house has a porch that only goes a little bit across, and then the other side, there's this little ledge of the house that goes up like 30 feet at
Yeah, it's
least.
very tall.
At the top of that 30-ish feet, there's like a flat part of the roof. And what happened is on the very corner that's 30 feet above my asphalt driveway, there's squirrels got into the roof. And so squirrels are a problem. You don't want them in your house. So I went and then I banged on the ceiling where the squirrels were. And then from a different area, my kids and my wife yelled, it ran out. And so I was like, okay, great. So I took the ladder out to my back porch, climbed up onto the roof, and I'm scared. I'm not scared of heights, but I don't like being 30 feet.
This is sketchy. This is
It's
officially
sketchy. So I'm belly crawling across the roof 30 feet up in the air, and I've got a can of Great Stuff insulation, and I'm going to reach over the corner and spray just to fill it up. So what happened is I'm belly crawling to the corner, and I'm scared because I'm really high up. And I reach over to try to spray, and what happened is the last squirrel that I didn't know was still on the roof jumped out and jumped off of the roof into the driveway.
As he's getting filled up, like his hole's getting filled up.
No, it's not as, because I was too I hadn't even gotten to the point of spraying the foam, right? I'm just belly crawling, and it knew I was getting close. And
Think about how the near-death experience of that squirrel
didn't
was like, oh my god.
right, no, the squirrel had the same experience, but the thing is, I couldn't react physically. I could only react verbally, because remember, I'm belly crawling on a roof, and I can't jiggle one way or the other.
Yeah, roofs are scary, by the way.
And so what happened is I reacted verbally, and then Alicia ran outside, and my son, instead of saying, the squirrel jumped off of the roof, said, he jumped off. And so Alicia thought I was dead for a second. So this is the camera we have on our back porch that caught all of it.
I saw him jump off. Daddy, are you okay? Who is he? What? The squirrel? Oh no! I'm gonna have a heart attack. I thought your daddy fell.
So just the near-death experience, you hear this grrr, and I go, oh. Okay, so here's another funny story. Same fucking squirrel, probably. Maybe it's the same family of squirrels. They, instead of going to the roof and going high, they went low. They went in through the garage, and they were crawling around on our drop ceiling in the basement.
This is Alicia's near-death experience.
This is my wife's near-death experience. What happened is it
Same
went
squirrel.
into our garage instead of into the roof, and so it got into the drop ceiling and the thing. And I got it out a couple of times, but what happened is somebody left the garage door open, and so Alicia went to close the garage door, and hilarity ensued. So go ahead, Nate.
Are you okay? There's a squirrel in here! Oh my god! Are you okay? Ah, squirrel! Ah, squirrel! Ah, squirrel! Ow! Ow! Are you okay? Oh, I just heard you screaming down. Oh my god! Did you fight you? That was scary right
She
to my
is so
leg.
shook.
Oh my
Right,
god!
let it go.
Oh, go!
Yeah,
So what's hilarious is you can't see it because I had to screenshot that video. But if you pull up the actual app from that camera, you can see the squirrel bolting out of the garage
yeah.
and then just hoofing it into the backyard. And that's when my son comes out and goes, "Bad squirrel, get out of here!" Because it's already like ran out. But anyway, I'm pretty sure she astral and remote viewed and had a NB like hit all of it at the same time.
Yeah.
So, Tim, I think we go back to the other video where you were on top of the roof and the squirrel flew out and everyone thought you died. So let's take this and pretend it was a near-death experience.
Oh yeah, read your
Because
sheet.
I have here the Grayson, if you remember Dr. Grayson, who I mentioned, who wrote the book After and works at UVA. He developed a scale to measure the depth of an individual's near-death experience. So,
All right. So, quick question: do you want me to answer these honestly, or do you want me to like try to just sort of wing it?
you answer them however you want to answer them.
All right. Dealer's choice. We got it.
And I'll tally up the score. So I'm going to ask you a question, and then I'm going to give you 3 multiple choice answers afterwards. And this is how UVA still does studies NDEs, so you'll be vicariously part of a UVA study by doing this. So first question, did time speed up or slow down? First, no, or time seemed to go faster or slower than usual, or everything seemed to be happening at once, or time stopped or lost all meaning.
I'll say sped up. B.
B.
Number 2.
2. All right. Next one. Were your thoughts speeding up? No, faster than usual, or incredibly fast?
No.
They didn't speed up?
I don't think my thoughts are capable of speeding.
Okay, good to know. Did scenes from your past come back to you?
Past Squirrel events, or like
any event. It doesn't matter. Any scene that came through your mind other than what was happening with the squirrel?
No.
Okay. Did you suddenly seem to understand everything?
That will never happen. No.
No. All right. Did you have a feeling of peace or pleasantness? No.
I had the opposite.
Wait. Yes. No. We haven't been going. Let's get back one. Did you see me here? You said no to this one too fast before you got to multiple choice. Did you suddenly seem to understand everything? No. Everything about myself or others, or everything about the universe?
I'll just say no.
Yeah. All right, I'll leave that one. So, did you have a feeling of peace or pleasantness? Yes. No. Relief or calmness? Incredible peace and pleasantness.
The opposite. So is there a way to do negative?
No,
too?
nope. You're stuck with 0. Did you have feelings of joy? No. Happiness or incredible joy?
Incredibly no.
Yeah, another no. Uh-oh, Tim. All right, here we go. Did you have a sense of harmony or unity with the universe? No. I felt no longer in conflict with nature, or I felt united or one with the world.
I felt like I created conflict with nature at that moment.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very
I
grounded
actually
experience.
sought revenge on that exact
Yeah, but
squirrel.
didn't you and the squirrel kind of for a moment have the same fear of falling? And
No, what's fucked up is the squirrel did fall. It jumped off the fucking roof. It belly flopped into a pancake,
But
bounced
was
up and
he
started
in conflict?
running.
But was he in conflict with you at that point? Or did you feel he was no longer in conflict as he fell off the
No,
roof?
he became a greater conflict because if that squirrel had killed me and we were both drifting off to the ether together, I'd be like, you piece of shit. I'd be trying to eat it into the ether.
Next question. Did you see or feel surrounded by a brilliant light? No. An unusually bright light, or a light clearly of mystical or otherworldly origin?
It was an incredibly dull gray light, yes.
So 1, you got a point for that. Were your senses more vivid than usual? No. More vivid than usual, incredibly more vivid.
I'd say incredibly more vivid because I saw my
You saw in
and
crystal
I
clear
also saw
detail,
the murder of the squirrel.
8K detail happening in front of you. Senses heightened.
Rage at the squirrel.
Did you seem to be aware of things going on elsewhere as if by extrasensory perception?
I was
No,
only
wait.
aware. Oh, yes.
No. Yes, but the facts have not checked out. Yes, and the facts have checked out.
Yes, because as soon as the squirrel freaked me out and I thought I was dead because I was falling off the roof, I was like, Alicia's going to freak out. Even when I was
That means facts have been checked out. You just scored a 2
but
on
she
that
was
one.
freaked out. We have video of it. She was
That's
freaked out.
Yeah, we just watched it. Good. That's awesome. Yeah. All right. Did scenes of here? This one actually also applies. Did scenes from your future come to you? No. Scenes from my personal future or scenes from the world's future?
Personal.
Yep. You're actually scoring on the near-death experience score. Did you feel separated from your body? No. I lost awareness of my body. Or 2, I clearly left my body and exited it outside.
I would say no, because I actually felt anchored to my body.
felt
Because
pretty
I
anchored.
was ready to experience the pain of falling 30 feet onto the asphalt.
Okay. Did you seem to enter some other unearthly world? No. Some unfamiliar or strange place, or a clearly mystical or unearthly realm?
No. I was
Yeah.
about to.
All right, that's
entered
good.
the
You're
realm.
being honest.
I entered
Honesty
a
is the best way
nest.
to go. All right. Well, that seems kind of a strange place, but all right. Next, did you seem to encounter a mystical being or presence, or hear an unidentifiable voice? No.
You can.
Wait, no. I heard a voice I could not identify. Or 2, I encountered a definite being or voice clearly of mystical or an unearthly origin.
What if there's no voice, but there was this being, and I don't know how earthly the squirrel was?
I'm gonna go no. Did you see any deceased or religious spirits? No. I sensed their presence or I actually saw them.
No. Though the squirrel might be deceased now.
I'm pretty sure that squirrel's dead.
Yep.
It didn't know it was dead when it was running away.
This one might be interesting. Did you come to a border or point of no return? No. I came to a definite conscious decision to return to life. Or 2, I came to a barrier that I was not permitted to cross or was set back against my will.
The phrasing of that, I gotta say no.
All right, so let's tally your score here. 1, 2, 6, 7. You scored a 7 in your near-death experience. So I'm making a sum total NDA scale score. Among a criterion group of NDEers, the mean score of the scale was 15 with a standard deviation of 7.84.
And within the standard, almost.
Yes. Yeah, well, we therefore use a score of 7 or greater, 1 standard deviation below the mean as a cutoff point to identifying an experience of an actual NDE. So, because your score was between 5 to 8, although it is on the lower spectrum of the NDE scores, that is the effective. That is an effective component of an NDE. Is what you scored. You'd have to get over a 9 to hit a paranormal component, and then over a 13 for a transcendental component. So you actually have a cognitive component of an NDE, which basically, which makes sense. It means like it's basically you had a conscious thing happen.
Yeah,
I like it.
that's awesome.
Before we move to there, let me double check my notes. A couple things I wanted to bring up with talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
Was something I think that a family member, like our aunt Cara, right? She had an NDE, and that was a big one because it involved mom, and she was in a car accident, and it was a weird one because she crashed, and she went through the front. It was before in the '60s, before seatbelts were in force, anyway. But she went through the windshield, and as that car was hit by behind or something, she went back into the cab, and she said she witnessed that the whole time, like outside of her body. And ever after that, she started having out-of-body experiences, which was cool. And in that experience, when that happened, the moment that happened, mom jumped up and was like, something terrible happened to my sister, which was crazy.
Yeah, and it took 3 days to get a hold of her. But mom was calling the whole time. She was like, something's wrong.
Yeah, across country. This is back in the day. There's no cell phones or anything, and she was in a coma or whatever. Another thing, like I like going to the Monroe Institute and stuff. Almost every instructor I talked to, all of they started with a near-death experience, not an out-of-body experience in your
Well,
death.
yeah, that's why I started bringing up Edgar Casey too, who had a near-death
Oh,
experience.
yeah, let's hear it,
And
Chris. Yeah, like I just didn't
he drowned when he was like 7 years old while he was fishing. Edgar Casey's like a very famous American clairvoyant, started the Edgar Casey Foundation based in Virginia Beach. Very famous, very interesting life story.
Akashic records. He healed
Yeah, he
like
kind of like,
thousands of people.
yeah,
Like,
he was a medical like clairvoyant, so he would go into a trance, and he didn't really ever, he died not well, but like, I mean, he didn't make a lot of money on this. Yes, there's an institute and all that stuff, but he was doing this to help people, so it wasn't really like
he never charged for it.
yeah, he never really charged for it. But he'd go into a trance and he would kind of access their records and kind of help diagnose medical issues and help people. But I think he had a couple near-death experiences. Well, the first was he was like 5 or 6 and he drowned and someone brought him back. And then later, I think he was a teenager working in a photochemical, like I mean, this was a long
Like
time
Chris when he stuck his hand in one.
Yeah, got electrocuted.
yeah, and he there was an explosion and he went blind.
No, you got electrocuted at the photo place you worked at.
Oh yeah, I probably had
No,
like,
you stuck your arm in the chemical vat too. You should have.
yeah, I had a bunch of near-death experiences in that photo lab. But yeah, he was blinded by like glass shrapnel and stuff, but he was able to cure himself. He was supposed to never be see again, but he like was able to diagnose in a trance like how to heal himself, and he did. But I liked it as a story just because a lot of people with like these abilities, like kind of extrasensory abilities, seem to have got them after NDEs, which, like you're saying at Monroe, like a lot of the teachers or like even Joe McMoneagle and stuff like
Yeah, was he at 3 times, and he was like the last one, or like more than that. It's like he's died so many times, right? But he was like the one time, the one that stuck with me that I like is he died and he was going towards the light, and there's a silvery being that stopped him. It was like, you need to go back. He's like, oh no, I want to go over there. He's like, oh no, it's not your time yet, or whatever this being was. He's like, are you my mom or something? It was what he thought. And the being was like, if you want me to be your mom. Like it was like kind of an awkward thing. And there's another, listening to Mysterious Universe had a really good one of they're talking about NDEs, and this one guy, he was in for a long time, he had this heart attack or whatever, and there are all these younger, he was like, I was floating up and there are these younger spirits giggling around me, and then this other spirit came over and like blasted them with love or something and made them go away, and I was like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, are you an angel? Should I have a life review? He's like, yeah, sure. Tell me about your life review. Or like, why don't you go ahead and get started with that? And he was like, well, I guess when I was born and blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, looks like you're about ready to go back. All right. And then he got sucked back, and that was his like whole experience, which was hilarious.
Awesome.
And then another thing I wanted to bring up, because part of my research was, I think I could go ahead and share a couple of these. There is a New Yorker article from a year ago called "Disappointing Near-Death Experiences."
Oh yeah.
I was gonna read a couple, and maybe this is in lieu of the joke episode or the joke thing at the end, because I don't have any jokes. Chris, do you have that link, or do you want to?
I have it, but
I could share if you want my screen here.
I have it. Hold on.
If we could take turns reading a few of these, because they're
Do you want to tell them to the barkeep?
Yeah, I want to tell these to the barkeep, and we have a few of them, so we could do probably.
All right, then
2
I'm just
each.
gonna leave. I'm really tired anyway, and then sit down. I keep making the sound.
Yeah, the podcast itself will make the horse.
Hello! It's been a minute. It's been at least 2 months since I've seen you travelers. Smelling and looking pretty weary. I don't want a joke. I get off on mundane near-death experience stories. If there's any
You're in luck. We have many to read to you.
disappointing near-death experience stories is what I'm looking for, and I may or may not pour you a slog of my ranch drink.
All right. So we can just read a couple of these mundane near-death experiences.
Yeah,
These are all-
Chris,
oh,
why
these
don't
are
you
all
go
true.
first? Yeah, apparently, I don't. What do I know? Like,
Sure, these are all-
I did
for
not
the record, these
research
are all
these
true.
so well.
These are all true, mundane near-death experiences that we found on the internet. I was passing through a tunnel of light. At the end of it, I saw all my deceased relatives dressed in white, waiting for me and beckoning lovingly, with the exception of Aunt Sonia, who said, "Whoa, someone put on a few pounds." I said, "Excuse me?" And she said, "I'll try, but I'm surprised you can make it through the light tunnel with those hips." When the lifeguard resuscitated me, I just felt annoyed.
Oh, I actually really enjoy that more than your joke. I'm getting the bottle of ranch drink.
All right. Nate, you read one.
All right, I'll go down a couple. And we can go back to a couple of some of these other ones. It's like, as I lay on the putting green, receiving CPR from the EMTs, my life began flashing before my eyes. A baby in a massive crib, a toddler pulling a wagon, a 5-year-old getting a new puppy for his birthday. It was all going like that. Flash, flash, flash. Until my life, which still had 60 years to go, got stuck on my 2nd grade Christmas pageant. When I had an accident in front of the entire school. I had to relive that awful scene, the embarrassing response of the audience, the hurried mopping up by the angry janitor, the mockery of the stable animals, the damn chill of my Joseph bathroom. I thought I would never end. Thank God they were able to bring me back to
life. There was a lot.
Give me another NDE, please. These are might good.
There was a lot of light, yes, and feeling of joy and release from this mortal coil. But then there were the relatives, all of them, every last dead one of them, smiling and happy to see me, which I can tell you never happened during my life. And to be honest, just shocked the hell out of me. I think it might have saved my life. That one was dumb.
That one's a little sad, yes.
As I floated up over the hospital roof, I was overwhelmed by a sense of lightness and peace. I looked down on the goings on of this world, all the struggle and mayhem, and I no longer felt like I was part of it. Intense surges of unconditional love and acceptance coursed through my body as if I were being bathed in a warm, healing light. For the first time, I loved myself and all the living beings. And then suddenly, I was back in that grubby little ER cubicle, feeling like shit. A malpractice suit is pending.
That sounds kind of like a
little close to home.
Yeah, or our buddy is at what's the podcast we like and talk to all the time?
Meatcast.
That sounds like one for the Meatcast.
Yeah.
Here's one. As the surgeon and the nurses worked to restart my heart, I floated above the operating table and found myself looking down at the entire scene. I noticed that the surgeon, with whom I had been flirting during our pre-op consultation, had a pronounced bald spot. After my recovery, things weren't just the same between us. That's a shallow one. It needs to go back.
That man need be calling the Bosley. If he's a surgeon, he can afford it.
All right,
I tell you what.
Do one last one.
One more, and then I'll pour you each a drink. You finally on your first full pour.
All right, Chris, you do it.
After the hunting accident, I drifted skyward toward a magnificent being made of light. And although it didn't speak in a conventional way, and as far as I could tell, didn't have a mouth, I could understand everything it said. "Come to me," the being said. The being seemed to intone, "Come to me." But then when I got close, the being acted surprised. "Woo, woo, don't sneak up on me like that," it told me through its thoughts. Your face... your face is really messed up. You scared the hell out of me. I beamed back with my thoughts. "I thought you called me over." Then came the reply. "No, I was beckoning to the woman behind you." I turned and saw a beautiful woman dressed in white. "Now beat it," the beings of light said. "And for fuck's sake, do something about that face."
Damn.
Oh, maybe I'll be pulling your ranch drinks back because that one kind of bummed me out.
That's really awesome. Come to me. Whoa. Don't sneak up on me like that. I hope that really happens. It's so good. It's like, it really gives a human approach. Or like you get some of the be like that Saturday Night Live where the alien abducted woman or whatever. It's like, well, they're like, I felt like I was touched by God. I could see my soul everywhere. It's like, well, I don't know what their experience was. I think I had the B team because they come taking turns and there's a lookout looking around the corner. I love that Saturday Night Live episode so much.
It's so good. That's Kristen Wiig. That was so good.
Well, a couple things. Oh shit! I closed my book. I wanted to list out a couple books and stuff. Hold on, let me find it. Any other call outs?
Oh yeah, I'll say that Corey from The World Is My Burrito podcast called us out a little. He didn't call us out. He actually sent a message. It was like, hey man, have y'all seen Cannibal Holocaust?
Oh,
Which was
I
the
downloaded it.
original that got turned into a remade as the Green Inferno that we talked about on our movie
yeah.
episode.
This is in reference to our last episode on like horror movie recommendations for 2023.
Yeah, so I looked it up. I remember seeing the cover of that VHS 6 million times.
Yeah,
At the
every time you went to
local
the
rental
video
store.
fan, there was that was there. I remember. I never rented it either.
I never rented it either, but I recognized the cover. So apparently that was the original Green Inferno, which was kind of a funny recommendation for cannibal horror or whatever.
I thought it was scary, even though Tim thought the
I thought it
hippies,
was
people
kind of
getting high
whatever.
off hippie meat, which obviously haven't tried decent hippie meat, I guess.
Yeah.
Let me give you a few NDE resources that I got at the Monroe Institute. So some organizations and websites to look up would be the International Association of Near-Death Studies. Near-death.
That's in North Carolina.
Yeah, that one is North Carolina. Near-Death Experience Research Foundation. I don't know where that's located. University of Virginia Department of Perceptual Studies. We've mentioned this a few times. Worth looking up. In one of the few universities that puts like serious money in
doing research.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Department of Perceptual Studies, and so a few books. I mentioned a couple of them. So we'll go Life After Life by Raymond Moody. That's like
the OG book on it.
His predecessor would be Bruce Grayson, which we just did his like Tim had his experience chart on. His book is called After. The Crossover Experience by PJ Cadigan. I don't know. I'll send it over there, and I don't think it's a musical DJ. Which would be awesome. The album would, if that were the crossover.
DJ
Experience
crossover
by
is not what you were
DJ Cadigan crossover. It just
DJ
does like
binaural, solid.
Binaural beats is all you get out of it. The Path of Spiritual Breakthrough by Jeff Carrera. The Council of Light by Melanie Becker. Application of Impossible Things by Natalie Sudman. And Light Emerging by Barbara Brennan. A couple Monroe books and authors.
Dude, Nate, that is so many books. I've already
Application of Impossible Things by Natalie Sudman.
What if
this is good content, Tim?
I know, but what if Nate's like, hey, I got a shit ton of books about NDEs, and we'll include them in our show notes on the website.
They're also
I will list them out.
We've never included any of our notes ever.
Okay, go ahead, Nate.
The Eyes of an Angel by Paul Elder. The Reluctant Messenger by Candace Sanderson. Near Death in the ICU by Lauren Bilg, Bellg, MD. The NDERF. You just look that up on YouTube. That's all I'll say. And then you can look at meditationguide.org. They have a bunch of videos. And then Application of Impossible Things is a good thing to look up on YouTube as well. And then if you want to actually research this shit, go to University of Virginia Department of perceptual studies, and then we also talked about the same thing with the International Association of Near-Death Studies and Near-Death Experience Research Foundation.
Or you can skip all that and just watch season 1 and 2 of the OA on the Netflix.
And then stay on Netflix and watch Surviving Death. It's so freaking good.
You
It's,
should
that one is
ignore everything I said, and Chris should edit it out, and then just
No.
The Surviving Death stuff. Mary and I have watched it twice. It is amazing.
It's
It
really
really
good.
is. And like everybody said that has one, it's like it's life changing. And you know, everybody says, I believe this is happens when you die. I believe everything's an objective experience or whatever. You know, like it is objective. So who cares? You
it's
know,
subjective in death as well as life.
Yeah.
All right. Good game.
Good game.